As a principal, I had a teacher come to me and ask me about an opportunity to create a peer observation program. I'd always had an interest in that when I was a teacher and worked and found some of the best professional development opportunities I had were doing things in conjunction with peers, observing other teachers' classrooms, right? As teachers, we steal a bunch of stuff, and I stole lots of items, etc. And I felt like I grew the most from some of the peer observation opportunities that I had.
I believe in this process. It works for me. I don't know, it'd be hard, I think, to see it not working. Like I can't imagine why it wouldn't work. But again, I know that, if it's my learning style. And it's good too for principals, because sometimes you have that, you kind of feel like you're on an island, right? You're at your building and like, who do I debrief with? Who do I do PD with, right? And being able to collaborate with your colleagues through celebrations, through maybe things that aren't working well, and then feeling that empowerment when you leave. You're like, you're full when you leave, right? Seeing other kids in other buildings, the great things that are happening.
When I came into this role, I actually reached out to a few of my principals to ask how they would feel about potentially doing a kind of a leadership peer observation program.
I think we took just kind of a more casual approach to the start of it, and our conversations were more around, hey, well, what do you need from this, or how should we go about this? And I think our ideas early on just were around, let's visit each other's schools. So when we sit down and talk at our reflection time during our regional meetings, we're usually talking about who has a need or where we should go next, or who we haven't seen next, and what that structure is going to look like, rather than reflecting at that time, because we've already reflected. We build that into our times when we go to each other's buildings.
I just was testing the waters, kind of put my toe in it to see what the thought would be. And there was a lot of interest. So I decided to start looking kind of across the nation to see what kind of leadership peer observation, if there were places doing it, or if there were districts that were really interested in that. And I only found a couple that were doing it, but it was more teacher oriented. And I really couldn't find one, I felt like, in terms of a leadership peer observation. I started kind of broaching the subject with some folks, and I had done it as a principal with peer observation with teachers to a high degree of success. We'd had a lot of success with it, and so we decided that we would do it with my kind of region, and we sort of jumped in and tried it, and we're now in year 2, and it's, I think, highly successful.
I have absolutely been loving it, because I've actually been able to connect with some colleagues that I didn't otherwise know, which was really cool, because you see them at principal meetings and things like that, but you don't really get to dig in and hear about their inner thoughts and what's going on at their school, and some things that they're struggling with that you might also have struggles with, and some things that they're doing really well that you can learn from. So I've very much enjoyed getting to work with that peer observation group.
I genuinely believe the strongest educators want to get better at what they do. They really do, right? Those high-performing teachers that want to be even better, seeking feedback, as the example I gave you earlier. I think it's very rare you meet somebody who doesn't want to get better at their craft, right? But you have to have buy-in. And one of the non-negotiables I said with my group is like, I'm asking you to commit to an hour a month, 1 hour. Put on your schedule, it's non-negotiable. You tell your people, like, I'm gonna go here. What I've learned is a lot of the times those hours turn into 2 and 3 hours, because they engage in such rich conversation that they have a hard time. And so I do know of a few people who are blocking out even more time.
Honestly, the biggest challenge, because we run schools and a lot of things happen at elementary schools, we don't often have extra personnel who can cover buildings for us during times of crisis. I know we've had to cancel a few times because the timing just didn't work out well. Or I think there might have been a few times that maybe 1 or 2 of us struggled with, I'm not quite sure what I want you to see yet. And we just needed to give more time for that to come to be.
That small school district with a superintendent, you got to ask folks if they would be interested in doing it. It's got to be very grassroots, and it's got to be catered to what people want to get better at what they do. Last year I had a group that they just really had trouble getting off the ground running a little bit. And I think when they heard some of their colleagues who were finding such value in it, sort of that intrinsic pressure kind of happened by totally nothing I did. They started to hear conversations of groups that were really running with it. It's just changed the whole dynamic. I mean, I would say we have 100% buy-in. Do some groups do it more effectively than others? Yeah, like I said, I got that one group is meeting 2 times a month. I got another group who, when they meet, it's not for an hour. They're with 3 hours, and they've blocked it out on their calendar like that. So it varies. I'd like to think that everybody's growing professionally in some way, shape, or form from the experience.
Every year I want to do something that's going to make my students the best students they can be. I want them to be lifelong learners. I know that's cliche, but when they leave here, I want them to be able to be successful no matter what they do. And so through this process, it has allowed me to continue to grow my personal growth goals about what I can do better, because I'm always seeking ways to improve. And I've learned so much from my peers that I'm able to take this back and put it into my school. And I hope that when I'm gone, that people will know the legacy that I've left behind, or I've left something behind that has made an impact at the school. I'm always looking to grow. And so just that continual learning has impacted that growth goal.
Being able to take our principal observation process, present it to my building leadership team, because they had already done some work in getting into each other's classrooms. But then again, I'm going to go back to that question, hey, what would it look like if we had, as a staff, a peer observation process in place? And I didn't say they had to. I just shared my belief in it. And then a couple other teachers talked about their belief in it. And now we've got that structure school-wide going on at Summit View. So that, to me, is the impact. That's where the power is.
It does take a little time for groups to feel comfortable with one another, dialoguing, right? Like there's a feeling out part where it's at first you go and it's, oh, this is a great school. I love it. You're awesome. And it takes some time to build the trust level to go, I appreciate that I'm doing awesome and feedback. I want you to tell me though, I don't feel like I'm great at this. Can you push my thinking? And we're at that stage, which is really neat to see. They push one another.